I was the primary person that was interested in doing social nudism, and my husband was a little bit more shy about it. I've always been the outgoing one in our relationship. So, as a way to sort of support me, he planned a vacation out of the country for us to go to a nude resort, and we did that for a few years, and then met some really, really great friends at one of those nude resorts, and they were from Minnesota as well, and we got together with them a bunch of times and just had a great time going out to dinner and having fun. And then she heard about Avatan, and they were having the first Anner sponsored skinny dip contest to have the largest group of skinny dippers at any one time. So that's the first time we came up here, and that's how social nudism really kind of became part of our lives. It was a secondary part prior to that, and then skinny dip days and being introduced to here is what really brought us around to social nudism. My family and was never part of our lives, so I'm not quite sure how I got to be interested in it and how it became such a big part for me, and secondarily for my husband as well.
So, what's important to you about not wearing clothes?
There's a couple of things. I have found that people that you meet are some of the friendliest people I've ever met. And not that you are, great friends with everybody you meet, but the first time we walked into a resort and had a nude resort, and had complete strangers come up and start talking to us and were very, very friendly, it was a completely different experience than when we had gone to clothed resorts. So the attitudes, it's like this barrier was removed from in a social setting where everybody was on a much more equal playing field, regardless of if they were a doctor or a janitor. Nobody really cared about that, or that's how it felt to us. And so that has since carried over to our experiences everywhere we've gone. People are much friendlier. They're much more willing to open up about their lives than at clothing resorts. And then as we've gotten as we became more comfortable with social nudism, it's the freedom of just not having to think about it and not having to put any clothes on, and the freedom of swimming in the pool without anything on. No sticky swimsuits, all of the things we think about and hate.
This is the first conversation I've had today where other resorts have come in, other kinds of resorts. So I want to press there a little bit. If you could say just a little more about the difference in the quality of relationships. I mean, the people my wife's family are great campers, great KOA people. 95% of what this camp is would be absolutely their thing. But the other 5% being, of course, perhaps not.
They want to do this with their clothes on.
Yeah, but I'm wondering what happens. You've done enough of this. You've been here long enough that you may see some depth here. What's the difference in the kinds of relationships you form and the kind of conversations you have without clothes on, or in a place where people don't wear clothes, as opposed to the friendly resorts you've gone to other places?
Yes. I think I have found that people are more willing to be, the word genuine came to mind first, but I don't think that's quite what I mean. They are more willing to explore the depths of topics that I have found that people at clothing resorts haven't been able to. So I would be able to sit at dinner with someone at a nude resort that I just met and really talk about some major social issue, whatever that might be, and get into the real significant depth of feeling and emotion that they felt, whether it was the same or different than mine, than I had ever experienced with someone at a clothing resort. It always felt a little bit more superficial at a clothed resort. So that was where some of that difference came in. And people were much more willing to open up and say, gosh, there aren't a lot of people who enjoy being naked, so let's stay connected to each other, because in Minnesota I've now found a group of people who have that base interest, and we can go do this thing together. And if you go to a clothed resort or a KOA campground, as you say, you've got 300 people who can go to the next KOA campground, and it can be 300 different people. You don't have quite the same number of people who are nudists, so you tend to develop a closer friendship because of that one common bond. Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense. I'm curious about one thing. How do you navigate the problem of not wanting to sort of out yourself necessarily, that is, not wanting to identify yourself such that a 5-minute Google search gets your website, and at the same time sharing your life? Does that become an issue?
It does. And I know it's almost contradictory to what I'm saying, but there are people that, if they find me here because they're here, then I'm not outed. It's the telling people who have the shame-based feeling about social nudity that I don't want to have that shared without, I want to choose the people I share it with. So that's why I make the choice to either tell people myself or not. And there are people who, unfortunately, would very much judge negatively, and that could impact, career, other social settings, things like that I choose to sort of keep it a little bit more private.
Yeah. But does that put much of a restriction on the kinds of conversations you can have here?
No. Not... no, I was going to say not for the most part, but no, because the people here respect that level of privacy that we don't want to be outed by each other.
Mm-hmm.
And so people here know what I do for a living. They know that my family all knows. They know that my work colleagues don't, and they also will respect that and not splash that out there that this person is a social nudist and they belong to Avatan and things like that.
Right. So for you, being here, being a social nudist, is in some of your professional context a secret.
Yes.
And that's as far as I can tell, a difference that interview by interview it's been a difference. Some people are downright evangelical about this. The more perplexed somebody's likely to be about it, the more they want to tell them.
Right. Yes.
And other folks are, really want to keep this as their private life and not as, an odd thing that everybody knows they do.
And I respect that about those individuals. And those individuals who are very much want to share it with everybody respect the fact that there are people here that they won't share who they are. So, for example, you just interviewed Juliet. And if Juliet wants to share that with everybody she knows, if she knew that I knew one of those people, she would never share that I'm here. she respects that piece, and and I would say that about everyone here, is that we respect that if you don't want it shared, we don't share that.
I see.
And we don't share it outside of the circle that is this nudist community.
I see. It's a very complicated social convention here.
It is very complicated, but at the same time, when you get here and you get to know people, you can very quickly come across, you know, who's more comfortable sharing it outside here, and you get to know. And
a related question is just about the way this fits into a life that has a lot of other stuff in it.
Yes.
And how you think about coming here from the rest of your life.
Well, we have a very complicated life outside of here, so this is a great escape for us on the weekends. We don't live far from here, and so we can come out every weekend. It's become a very social aspect of our lives. We've made very good friends here, but it is choices where we have to decide, do I want to come up and spend my whole weekend at Avatan, or do I take the time to get dressed and go out and spend time with our friends outside of here? And that's, you know, every week it's what do we have planned and where are we going to go and who are we going to hang out with. So it is, when you do have those two separations, you kind of have to make those choices. And
yeah, and the difficulty presumably is Avatan's always going to be the easier choice in a whole bunch of dimensions.
Yes, it really is.
More people, less clothes, less investment, less bother.
Yes, yeah.
Ready-made.
It is. You know, I can go out and have a couple of glasses of wine at dinner with my friends and not have to worry that I'm going to get in my car and drive home. I just have to walk, and there's a whole level of differences of choices that you make here. 5
parties in walking distance as opposed to...
Exactly, as opposed to I have to get in my car and drive around, and I can go from dinner on someone's deck and have a fabulous dinner and then walk to someone's for a bonfire.
No, the charm is very, very clear to me talking to people.
It's just you have to take off your clothes.
Well, but I imagine from your perspective, it's a matter of you have to put on your clothes for anything else.
Sundays are very difficult because I have to put my clothes on and go home.
Yeah.
But for the average American, it's, you want me to take my clothes off? And it's very foreign and very alien, and it's not what I have heard people express what they think a place like this is about. It's almost completely the opposite of what that is.
Yeah. Of course, that's fine, isn't it? I mean, if everyone understood it, it couldn't exist.
It wouldn't be maybe not as interesting.
Well, if everyone understood it, you couldn't have, 120 campsites.
Very true.
And people feeling like we have to hang together as nudists because there aren't all that many of us.
Yes, I agree.
It would be KOA land all over again.
It absolutely would. You're absolutely right.
It's you don't want to disabuse the American people too quickly of their prejudices, however unfounded.
That is a great.
They are your friends.
Yes, that's a great point. That's absolutely a great point.
That's it. So how long have you been coming here?
6 or 7 years. I'm trying to think back. I think it might have been 2009, 2008, something like that. I can't remember. It was when the first big skinny dip was.
Right. Okay. And so you've come a lot of weekends anyhow.
In the last, since we've bought a unit here, I could probably count on two hands the number of weekends we have not come up during the open season.
So had a chance to see kind of the range of people who come, the range of
Yes.
activities, the kind of flow of the place, that sort of
Yes.
thing.
Yep. Absolutely.
And also, the slow changes in membership and
Mm-hmm.
the issues and all that. I'm just wondering, from that sort of historical and kind of observational perspective, what have you noticed?
I think that I've noticed a couple of things, and the first is a desire to keep keep Avatan as much about social nudism and allowing all types of people access. So we don't want to be, an elitist club. We don't want to be any of the things that would keep people out. We want to be open, friendly, and have it nice and forward-thinking that is going to attract people to come here, be they, janitors or doctors or whatever walk of life they happen to come from. So keeping it open to a wide, vast group of people, and the change that drives is we're asking people to slowly think about what we have here as a little bit less of maybe a campground and more of a community, and how do we maintain the community in a person and look, how the place looks, how we keep it maintained, how we as individuals act here, maybe shifting a little bit, and that's, I think, caused some it's a change, and any kind of change at some of those levels starts to make people uncomfortable a little bit. So
yeah, I guess this is very interesting. Say just a little bit more about what the shift to thinking of yourselves as a community involves.
I think it involves, like I mentioned, more about how do we present ourselves as an entire group, and how when you walk in as a first-time visitor, how is the entire place perceived by that first-time visitor? Not just the people, but the grounds and the activities. You mentioned activities and everything that it's all connected, and we need to think about it as all connected instead of and I don't know that we've ever thought about ourselves as just as individuals, but I think it's I'm having a hard time explaining kind of what I mean, but it's more about looking at us as the entire group and the grounds, facilities, everything that we bring to the table as a destination, be it every weekend, or I'm going to come up for one weekend for visitors.
The way it's sounding to me, tell me if I'm wrong, is that you, to some extent, you want people to think or to encounter Avatan a little bit the way people naturally would encounter a small church. I just mean, when you encounter a small church, the facility is not what anybody's seeing. It's the fact these people have been here for a while, they will continue to be here, they will have a certain set of relationships with each other, they will take on responsibilities to a certain extent, and so forth.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. It's the core of the belief is different between the church and what we have, but it is still that but at the same time, when you walk into a church, you do look at the facility and you look um, at what is surrounding the people as well. But yes, it's come and look at us as the people that are here as well as the facilities.
Yeah. And this is, if I'm understanding right, is primarily a question of how you present yourself to new people.
Yes.
Not so much a question of how you understand yourselves as old people.
Right, yeah.
I mean, you already understand yourselves in as a community.
Yes.
It's just it may not be, what you're saying is it may not be obvious to somebody coming in that they're stepping into a community. They may think of this as much more like a KOA with a gate.
Yes, absolutely. And I think, and interestingly, we're willing to, if people come in and that's all they want, is a KOA with a gate, and take their clothes off and do that's fine. But if they want to have some of that community experience, then I think we as the community need to come together and invite them in and start to introduce them to social nudism as a community activity instead of just an individual activity.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I've taken to closing with the question about, there's a little bit the question, who should be here?
Mm-hmm.
Which is also perhaps an invitation to do the recruitment speech you've always wanted to give.
I'm really bad at those.
But I know that recruitment with a place like this is really weird because you don't want everybody. You don't want a whole bunch of people who are going to be grotesquely uncomfortable or grotesquely disruptive, or you're
Yes.
recruiting very specifically, and I'm curious, who should be here?
I believe that it's for anybody. It is not for people who think it's only for the beautiful people, because I don't think any of us are here. There are very few of us that are here that would qualify out in normal society as the beautiful people. We are all shapes, we are all sizes, we are all ages.
Mm-hmm.
So for those people who are going to walk in the gate and think they're going to see all size 2 bikini bodies, they're going to be sorely disappointed. And they should never walk through the gates, because those are the people who say large people shouldn't be naked, old people shouldn't be naked, and that's a fallacy. Everybody can be naked. You just have to be comfortable with your nudity and other people's nudity. That's why I say anybody can be here, as long as you're comfortable with the fact that you're going to see every shape and size and every age and both genders. And so that's who should be here, is people who are interested in all of the things you do in your everyday life, but being able to do them without your clothes on.
Thank you.